personal views and opinions expressed by our podcast guests are their own and are not legal advice or official statements by their organizations. Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. This is the Data Diva Talks Privacy podcast, where we discuss data privacy issues with industry leaders around the world with information that businesses need to know now. I have a special guest from France on the show, Enrico Panai. He is the founder of Be Ethical. He's also an expert in enhanced nudge like technology. Also, he's a PhD researcher, standards expert, and he's an editor. So he's a very multifaceted person related to technology and privacy. And I'm happy to have him on the show. Hello, Enrico.
Hi.
Yeah, this is great. This is great to have you on the show. So we've been connected on LinkedIn for a while, and I've always loved your content and your commentary, and we always comment on different things. And I think you're at, I love to talk about merging technologies, and you're right at that edge. You're kind of leading that charge. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell people a bit about what you do at Be Ethical. And I definitely want to get into kind of your idea about sort of nudge technologies and things like that.
Thank you very much. So I'm a philosopher of information. So I always studied philosophy, and I took a PhD in philosophy. But then I'm always worked as a developer also in the ICT sector. So I mixed the two worlds, and I did development with a very strong philosophical background and ethical framework. So at the moment, so I've been teaching. I'm Italian, basically, and I came in France 15 years ago. And I've been teaching at university for several years. And when I moved to France, I started again to work in the private sector. And so a few years ago, I created my consulting company in ethics of data and artificial intelligence. And nowadays, I'm working for big companies, just to give you some international name like Huawei or other banks and insurance companies in France, just to help them to find solutions and to find a good reasoning for ethical problems and ethical issues.
Wow, that's really cool. That's awesome. I like to see people, you call yourself a philosopher. I study philosophy as well. So I think we have that in common. And my mother was horrified. She was from a generation where you went to school for practical things. So she just didn't understand what I was going to do with this. So it's kind of funny that I ended up in technology. So I think it's really cool that we have that in common. Also want to congratulate you. You work with someone that we know together, Ryan Carrier at ForHumanity, and you are, I think, a licensee of their kind of audit process for ethical AI. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So I met Ryan a few years ago. And at the moment, I'm a senior fellow of ForHumanity. That is a big association. We count more than 800 people around the world. And I think we are more than 40 senior fellows in the association. And the basic idea was to create a kind of ethical-based audit. So in order to do so and to build an ethical environment for companies and to work to construct a infrastructure of trust, we use several pillars to validate, to verify that companies using data, personal data, and artificial intelligence systems in a good, appropriate way. We don't say what is good or bad for an ethical system, but we just verify that all the environment around is built in a correct way. I think the ethics is not like law. You cannot comply with ethics. You can only work to build the environment that bring people to reason in an ethical way. And so that's what we are doing with ForHumanity. And the first audit that we are going to publish will be maybe about the GDPR, the British version that we are preparing together with the ICO in England, and then that we are going to test during a period, a pilot project the next year. And then we are working on several kind of schemes related to data, for example, biometric data, the future EU AI Act, and another one is very, very important for me is the Children's Code in the UK also, because we are working on children's data and how to protect the children's data. And we have a lot of projects. I'm personally working on something that I think is very, very important, is the code of data ethics. That is a very specific subcategory of the code of ethics, but related to data, algorithms, and the practices of developers and the management to focus on all the organizational system of a IT company.
Yeah, I like Ryan. Ryan has been on the podcast. He's wonderful. I like, since you're a philosopher, I love to ask you this question. I know you have a great answer to this. So I think some people sort of stop in privacy around the regulation stuff, right? And we know that there is a gap there, and that's kind of where ethics is. So I tell people that not all laws are ethical. So you can't pretend that law gets you or regulation gets you to the place where you've done your job or done your duty as it relates to kind of the privacy rights of individuals. What are your thoughts?
I think that what you're saying is true. You cannot only comply with laws to do privacy because it's a bit more complex than that. First of all, I'd like to say that privacy it's for ethics a foundational feature. We cannot do ethics without security and without privacy of personal data. So they are even not ethical principle. They are the sine qua non. You cannot do anything else. And so we should work on privacy for that. However, at the moment, we are thinking that, I don't know if you have seen a lot of websites after the GDPR, they just added a few more pop-ups that you have to accept, but right. They are not doing an ethical approach of private data for that. They are just assessing that they are using cookies for something or something else, but no user is going to read their privacy policy when they are visiting the website. So It's a very light way to understand the data protection from my point of view.
Yeah, I call it cookie theater in some ways. So I think you're really at this intersection that's so important, and it's going to be more important going forward. And that is, where do we, AI, the harm in AI can be so detrimental to an individual that you can't wait really for regulation. And I don't think regulation will ever fill that gap. So I think it's important to have people like you who are working on it at that kind of that fundamental level, then also making sure that organizations understand that just, ticking a box on a website or writing a policy, getting a template probably off the internet and writing a policy is going to be sufficient. And I also think that, fines shouldn't be the driving factor. And what I'm seeing now, I don't know how you're seeing this in your business, but what I'm seeing now is that because of part of the good thing with the regulation is that I feel like more organizations understand that they need to be cautious and they need to ask more questions, especially of third parties, about how they handle data. And so what I'm seeing is that if a company can't really answer the questions about how they handle data of individuals, is a risk, right, to organizations, and it can be a barrier to business. So that's the bottom line right there. So what are your thoughts?
So I think that we misunderstood the idea of privacy when we are trying to comply with the GDPR, because basically there is a philosophy behind the GDPR that is saying, hey guys, we are in a new world that is an informational world, what we call in philosophy the infosphere, and so data, and in particular personal data, are very related with the data subject. And so if we want to progress in this world, we have to improve our way to treat this data. The wrong thing that we are trying just to comply with privacy and regulation, but we should use GDPR as an engine to increase and to improve the technological level of our company, the organization, because it's not only the techniques of the technologies, but it's also the way you manage data, because all technology that we are using are data related. So we have to manage data in a good way to make those technology more powerful for the future. There is another thing that is important for me. It's when we are talking about a mature informational society, we think that we are in a society that produce information and treat information. But what is our level of maturity about it? That means that if you go in a country where they are mature water society, you open the tap, you have water, and you drink the water because they are mature for the water. They have proper and potable water. For me, being in an informational mature society means that I can use information, and information are going to be used in a good way. And the fact that you have to accept cookies in a website or very long privacy policy anytime you use an application or a software, it means that we are not yet in a very high level of maturity, because it's like if you were going to open the water on a tap and then you had to do chemical tests anytime you want to drink something. No, a good society shouldn't say, okay, I'm empowering Debbie, and so I'm telling her how I'm going to use their personal data. No, that's not. if you want to be in a mature society of information, you shouldn't make me think about it. I should be sure that you are using in a good way my data. And I shouldn't mind about it. I shouldn't feel like you are cheating on me because you are stealing my data and treating them or manipulating them in a way that I don't like. So we are still in an immature informational society, from my point of view.
Yeah, right. I agree with that. So I like the analogy you gave about water, right? So I don't know. I guess there are two streams of things happening. So one is there's kind of an ocean of data out there, and it's being used, in all types of different ways that people don't know or understand, right? And then we have kind of this cookie thing going on, or this thing where people are trying to comply, where you're having to, for every drop of water, to your analogy, they want you to answer a question. But in the background, there's this ocean of stuff that's like flowing. So they're not connected right now. And right now, that the IAB Europe case is going on right now about kind of this real-time bidding thing, and also how organizations handle kind of the consent and transparency in websites. There's a draft ruling, I think, coming out of Belgium, if I'm not mistaken, about this, and it sort of hits the point about there are kind of these two different worlds. There's kind of facade. This thing is this theatrical thing that's happening in the front, and then there's all this other stuff that's happening, really damaging, harmful stuff that's happening in the background, and those things aren't connected right now. So I think we need to really talk about that. What are your thoughts?
You are right, but because we are living one of the most important revolution in the last 20,000 years. We shouldn't think about data as a technical revolution of the last 20 or 50 years. We are just changing the way writing was connected to the support in the past. So we had a great revolution with agriculture and then with the invention of writing. They are great revolution in history. And the last one was the Turing Revolution, just the last one. And we don't have yet the paradigm to understand what we are living in. Think about the quantity of data. If you think of data like water, just to keep the same analogy, all the data produced from the first painting in a cave until 2005-6 were like a swimming pool, a big swimming pool, but not enormous. In 2016, in 2017, we arrived to have a black sea. So we changed the dimension completely of the way we are treating data. We don't even know where we are going to stock all those data we are producing today. The problem is not only how we are going to use them, but even we don't know how to stock them. They are too much. And yet, we are living exactly the same organizational approach of the paper era. So if you think that still today, a lot of companies are using PDF to print something, to sign it, to scan it, to send it back, and all those steps are steps where information and personal information can leak out from the company. So when you are asking for performance to an employee, and so is bringing his USB stick at home to work with his data, but you are augmenting the risk of losing the personal data of somebody. So the reality is that we are living in a new, completely era with a very old paradigm of treating this kind of data. And so in this way, the philosophy of the GDPR is interesting because they are saying that you have the opportunity to change your way you treat data. And if we use this regulation as a driver for change, instead of thinking that we have to comply with it, then we could do a very big step. In this case, I'm living in Europe, and I think that Europe is using GDPR as a geostrategic tool to make an improvement around the world about the way we treat personal data.
Excellent. I love that. What is happening? You're right at that cutting edge, I feel, with kind of technology and privacy, and then also just kind of looking at the emerging things that are happening. So what is happening right now in the world that's concerning you the most as it relates to privacy? What's in the ahead that we're not thinking about that concerns you?
This is a big question. It's a lot that is happening. I'm working with personal data a lot because I'm co-chair of a group in Europe that is working on AI enhanced nudges. And this is a point that is very interesting. But before talking about it, because you studied philosophy, I want to just do another, tell you another thing about what I think privacy is and how it can be then declined with several kind of decisional tools like nudges that we are going to talk in a while. What is privacy? That's a good question. What is privacy and why we are so concerned with privacy? I try to have a poetic approach to privacy. I change the perspective. I don't know if you remember what diegetic is for Aristotle. He's in the poetic. Is talking about the idea of something inside the story. And so, for example, in a movie, a poetic sound is the sound that all the actors can listen to inside the movie, okay? While the extra diegetic is the sound that only the people that are watching the movie can see, is the soundtrack, but the actor cannot listen to that. Now, privacy is like a bit that is something that should be diegetic in this sphere. Why we don't, what we don't like of privacy is when it's becoming extra diegetic. So, for example, I do agree that if I'm a student in my class, my classmates know all my rates, but I don't like if it's going out of my class. So it's a problem of dimension. So privacy is not something absolute, but it's something that related to the dimension. I don't like that it's going outside. And what I don't like is another effect, is the transdiegesis of privacy. It's the privacy that is good inside the classroom, and somebody is taking from there and taking it out. So these two elements of privacy I don't like, okay, as a citizen. And so having this approach to privacy we know what is the dimension, and now we can, we understand that is something related to the environment, and now we can understand how we can make a trade-off with transparency. Okay, so is it transparent in a classroom if a student knows the rates of other students because it's transparency, but it should be privacy, taking those notes and publishing them on a public website? Okay, so anytime we talk about transparency and privacy, and that's important, we should be very careful of focusing on the level of abstraction we are using and on the environment we are treating this problem. Now, the point is of what I said, the transdiegetic. So I take privacy, I take it out from an environment. And in this effect of moving privacy, so moving data from an environment to another, I can use those data to make, again, people doing something. So that's what I'm doing with nudging. I'm working on it just to try to write a standard about it, and just to mitigate the possible risks related to AI enhanced nudges. So for people who doesn't know, the nudges are all the small incentive that are quite not visible and that bring you to do something, okay? And they can be designed by choice architects. So people who is behavioral psychologists, and then because of that, they can design the way you behave. And so this is a way. The real problem is when it is an algorithm that is going to take your data to reinvent a new mechanism, a new nudging mechanism that is going to impact to yourself again. So it's taking data from an environment that is the decision-making process, something very personal, and it's taking some particular biometric data or behavioral data from you, using and elaborating them with a model, and creating a mechanism to make you change your behavior. So I cannot say that it's good or bad, and I won't never say it. I want to know how they are used, and I want to protect some kind of categories that are more fragile to lose this kind of mechanism, because they cannot face with the deepness of this kind of mechanism. It is going to change something profoundly in you.
Yeah. I did a video about nudge technology a bit ago, just to explain to people. So these are really deep concepts. So I guess I'll throw it out there just at a high level. And we can talk a little bit about the UK age appropriate design code, because they really are the ICO is the one that really called this out. And I thought it was great that they did this. So basically, nudge technology, I guess you can call it a philosophy or a framework is about psychology and about how people learn or how people react to stimuli, right? So it has been used well in things like education, right? Where you're trying, like, for example, you're trying to get a child or someone to learn something. So nudging in that way can be very positive, where you're trying to increase someone's knowledge or understanding or comprehension. And what's happening is that this philosophy, for lack of a better term, of nudging is being implemented in technology and in AI, so artificial intelligence. So And then when it's using AI, sometimes people use it for different things. So they want to nudge you to buy something or to take some action that maybe you would not have done if not for that kind of influence in some way. So I like the children design code really call this out, especially around children, because children don't understand kind of psychological, I guess if for lack of a better term, it is kind of psychological manipulation in a way, right? Because he's like, okay, I want you to take this action. I want you to buy this product. I want you to do this thing that maybe, you know, I want you to think is your idea, maybe, or in absence of what's happening in the background. That's kind of the concern about nudge technology. And I like the fact that you're concentrating there because I think the thing that people aren't talking about with technology is kind of the psychological part of it. So taking the way that people perceive input, right? And then creating algorithms that can do it billions of times over and over, so you're only seeing what they want you to see. And then it's also with technology with things like I work on like metaverse type stuff. So I work with a lot of things with like sensory things, virtual reality, augmented reality. And that's going to be a whole different level of nudging and all this other type of stuff, because not only will these technologies be able to show you what they want you to see, which they can do right now, right? But then you're going to be in a more immersive space where they can, you literally have blinders on because you can only see what they want you to see. And then they can record or your interaction or your response to that. And maybe the response that they want from you, if they know, okay, this person responds the way that I want them to when I show them this, let me show them more of this. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that that's the possibility that with more immersive systems, the cognitive bias that are going to be used to people to change their behavior are more immersive, so are more than just one single bias. And the point is that we will not have only human choice architects to do that, because we have too much data to treat and to produce adapted nudges. So nudges have always existed, because our parents used the nudge for us. Our teachers, when we were young, used that, and we still use them every day. The problem is not trying to make something, because basically you are trying to make something good for somebody. This is the basic philosophy behind the nudges. The point is that as a mechanism, a nudge can be bad or can be good. Okay, it depends on when you are using it, against who you are using it, and how long you are repeating the action. There are several experiences that are being doing at the moment in several universities that shows that when you are repeating positive nudges, in the long term, the general effect can be negative. So that's what we want to evaluate, assess, and check during time. We are not saying that nudges shouldn't be used, because they are a mechanism, and so they will be used, and they are already used, as you said, because in social networks and video games, they are quite usual, even if they are not always called nudges. But we know that they are used. The point is that we want to, in a certain way, protect the liberty of, in particular, of the child to build his or herself. So the construction of the self, it's very important. And for that construction, you shouldn't be hacked during a decision. You should be free to take a decision, to be wrong in a decision. You should have this freedom. What in UK they are doing is wonderful. Even if they stop at the idea of digital nudging, there are different categories of nudges. Classical nudges are just an incentive in any way. Digital nudges are the same, but with a digital interface. And AI-enhanced nudges are created in an automatic way by models, AI models, statistical models. So the point is that they focus already on digital nudges, and it is very good. But the danger tomorrow will be all the nudges improved and enhanced by AI. And so with ForHumanity, with Ryan, we are working to create an audit for the children's code developed by the ICO in UK. I think that UK is the most advanced country in this area, and they are doing a wonderful thing in protecting children. And what we are asking as an Association for Humanity is that any company that has got children's data and is treating children's data should have a special committee, not a classical ethical committee or any kind of algorithm committee, but a special committee dedicated to children's and to children's data. So we are calling this the Children's Data Oversight Committee, and we believe that any company should have a group of experts inside to prevent possible danger of using this kind of data. So that's our approach. As you said before, it's not only compliance. We don't have any regulation about it yet. So let's do it before that is too late.
I agree. Actually, the UK Children's the Age Appropriate Design Code, I did a video on that as well. But I also recommend it to my clients that aren't in the UK. Because I think it's just a great framework, especially for people doing development of applications. So it's something that they really need to really think about. And, it's funny because I have this conversation with someone, a developer, about nudging, because, it is used a lot in education, right? And they were like, well, so that doesn't mean I can't use nudge technology. I'm like, no, that's not what it means. It means that we need to be careful about how we use it, and that we're doing it in a transparent way. And that it's sort of, the goal is to increase the education of the individual, not to create kind of a manipulative environment. Like you don't want to nudge them to buy your bottled water product or something like that. We know that can be like really dangerous. So I think it's a great step. And I think, not just nudge. So I feel like the reason why this is so important is because you're calling out a category of kind of psychological, what's the word I can say? Your work on nudge is important because you are touching on something that people haven't really been looking at, and we need to look at a lot more. And that is kind of the psychology behind AI systems and what the impact can be on the individual, especially as it relates to what their actions will be. So whether it's called nudge or not, right? We understand that there is psychological tricks, right, that are used not just in technology. This happens in kind of, person-to-person interactions as well. But technology can supercharge that interaction, and it can make it happen, billions of times faster than a person can do, like an interpersonal, reaction or interaction. So it's very important.
Yes, indeed. And what you just said about the age-appropriate design, it was already used by developers that were aware of the problem in the past, but we should use it by design. And that means that all the interaction you are doing with certain age should be reasonable for that age. You cannot use the same language for an adult for a 10 years old child. So that's important. We should be careful of that. And we are working a lot on this aspect, and they are quite important. But at the same time, I think that we should take care also of people that do not understand the complexity of the digital world, because we are living in a kind of filter bubble. You know about privacy, you contacted me, I know what we are talking about. Yes, I use the acronyms of AI, and we understand. We talk about nudge, and we understand. Yes, we are special people that know, we are in the sector, we know everything about it. But, and I'll tell you a bit of my experience. In my entire life, I started very young to teach basic IT technology to people. I was 19 and I had the opportunity to work for a big company. I started doing IT classes from very low level people. And I carried on doing the same all my life. I still do it because I believe that it's the only way I can understand how people are understanding technologies. Teaching to them the basics of ICT. And when you teach to them, you realize that several things. The first thing is that what we understand about data and information is not the same for everybody. And so everybody's got a different semantical structure to understand, or even better, a different epistemological approach to understand what they are reading, what they are seeing, etc. So that's important. And that's why maybe because we have so radical group in the social network that are going to develop. The second thing, and I think that people should think about it a lot. The second thing is that we believe that the new generation are more comfortable with technologies than older generation. And we believe that because they were born with a mobile phone in their hands. Then I must say that in the 5 or 6 last year, I started to realize that the youngest people had an enormous conceptual gap with using data and information. And so, yes, they use a mobile phone, but they don't have something that is very important, the structure of the world they are visiting. They don't have the geographical metaphor of what they are seeing. I make you just an example. Who started to use ICT in the 90s generally had the metaphor of the office, and then it projected that metaphor on office. So you got a desktop, you got a bin, you got Word software. So you are projecting your physical metaphors on the computer. With a mobile phone, so you utilize archives. Okay, you put folders and file into the folders. You give name to the files, etc. So you are organized. You see. When younger people started to use technologies, they use the mobile phone, so they don't have the idea of archive. They don't have the idea of paragraph. It's easy, very easy, but they don't have it. And so what we are creating is a generation where you have developers, a lot of developers, a few people that do development, and then you have the biggest majority of people that do not understand what the computer is doing, what a mobile is doing. And that's even worse than the old generation, because they don't mind. They say it's magic, it's working like that. You talk with a young child, they don't know the difference between using a mobile and using WhatsApp or Messenger. For them, there is no difference in this kind of communication. They lost the physical approach of the information technology. And so their brain cannot understand what is happening to their data or what they are producing in the infosphere, so that we were aware of much more than the new generation. So why is it so important, the work that SEO is doing with the children's code? Because we have to take into account the different way new generation are thinking about their own data, okay? Their own personal data, because personal data are not something that I can buy. It's not an external thing. They are me. They are like my arm. So you cannot imagine to just take off your personal data from you and treat them as an external object. They are the integrity of you being a data subject. The GDPR talk about data subject. It means that there is an entity, a human entity that represents it. And so they are not separate. So I don't know if I was clear enough, but...
Oh, definitely. I totally understand. And I think tying back to when we're talking about kind of how data is handled right now, I think there has to be a bridge at some point between kind of this ocean of data that's being handled in the background and sort of what we see on the front end, because I think when we're talking about data privacy, for example, let's use the GDPR, for example. So we're thinking about data as, like data controllers, data processors. Data is something that you give to someone and they do something with it. But there's this whole other kind of stream of data that you don't give to people, that they can infer about you, that doesn't belong to you, that you never gave to someone, that a company or organization can make inferences about you, right? And they can take action for or against you based on those things. So that's like a whole, I don't think the regulation has quite grasped that. And that's why a lot of these companies make so much money, because it doesn't really answer. It doesn't really fit into that framework. What are your thoughts?
Yes. The gap there is that technically, an inference is not a datum. It means it's one thing I always did during the ICT project is using the etymologies of words, because they help you to understand better what you are talking about. And the word data came from the Latin datum. It means something that has been in the past. Okay? And that's important. It's an important distinction, because an inference is something that you are are building from something that has been in the past. So it's not real. That's why they are treating inferences not like data. They say, well, they are not. We are not using data. We use inferences or proxy variables to make another decision, but they are not data, so it doesn't matter for us. The point is that inferences should be used in a very controlled way. You cannot inference something. I cannot inference. I'll let you know something that maybe it's not very known in US. I came from an island in the Mediterranean Sea, Sardinia. It's not Sicily, it's another Italian island. We are more or less the same dimension of the island. And in Sardinia, we weren't very developed in the last century. It means that generally we did very poor jobs, and in the inside of the island, then we have the coast that were a bit more developed. And there was a psychologist in Italy, it was called Lombroso, that started to do a kind of scientific psychology. He measured every measure of the Sardinia to demonstrate that because of some mathematical and arithmetical proportion, we could be only dangerous people, okay? And so Sardinians were treated in a particular way because the Italian state thought that we were dangerous. So, or we were criminals, or we were used in the army just to go in the front line because we were thought to be dangerous. And this is an inference. You are taking your kind of measure and you are saying you are stupid, or you are dangerous, or I cannot trust you. And I know that I don't know the same. I haven't lived the same history of the black in America, but I think that you had a bit the same problem of making the inference of what you are because of what your physical measures are. That is the color of your skin, the school you have done, the neighbor where you lived, or now all that should not be. I don't say that should not be used, should be controlled. Because yes, it should be used. Because I need to know in a database if you are a woman or a man, so I can do a kind of positive discrimination and say, oh, guy, we have too many men in this group. We have too open to women. So I need this information because I need a good ethical discrimination and positive discrimination. So that's not true that I don't need all the data, but I shouldn't do inferences about race or protected categories and making any kind of choices, even for a single advertisement, not just for a job, even for a single advertisement. So it's not good that, for example, a young girl has got only advertisement in pink. I don't agree with that because it's not the way we have to treat a human being. Okay, we are forming our mentality. We are modeling our mentality, our thinking, our beliefs. That's not correct. It's not because I believe that. It's just because the algorithms shouldn't reinforce this kind of approach. Okay, it was already in the past. We tried to fight this approach. Now we have artificial intelligence that is reinforcing it. No, thank you. We have to be more intelligent than that, more smarter.
I agree. I agree. I know there's a case going on in Europe right now about a credit agency that denied a person, I can't remember what country it was in the EU, but they denied a person an account for an electricity. It was a utility of some sort, and the only information they had about the person was their name, their sex, and their address. So they didn't have any credit history or anything. So they literally denied this person based on sort of what their name is and where they live. So I think I want to see this case and how that goes forward. So I think it'll have a huge impact. So that's like an example of an inference, right? So they can't say that it's kind of a black box secret sauce type of thing with their algorithm because they caused a negative impact on this individual based on the way that their AI worked. They need to be able to explain why he was denied, credit based on their, whatever their inference is about this person and where he lives and stuff. So you hit the nail on the head. And I think that the thing that you're talking about related to kind of inference and, discrimination is something that we really need to take a closer look at with AI for sure. So now, if it was the world according to Enrico and we did everything that you said, what would be your wish for privacy or data protection anywhere in the world, whether it be, law, technology, human, AI, nudge? What are your thoughts?
I'm a dreamer. I love to walk on the street without thinking about my security. Okay? I love to talk with people without being afraid of something would happen to me or my family. And I would like the same for privacy. I think we will be in a mature world, but nobody will be stressed about his privacy. So the work we are doing now is just to create a more livable environment for data subjects. I want everybody from the very beginning when they are children to after their death, because we are still data of the dead people. All this data will be treated in a good way, and we should care of those data without the people mind about the security. I'll say something different from the giant of the IT. I don't want to take off empowerment to people, but I want to give them time and freedom and taking off all the energy they are using to think about this kind of stuff. They should do other kind of stuff, not thinking about their protection. So I hope that in Europe and other countries like US, Brazil, Japan, and even China, we could in the future develop a system where our data are protected without us to think about that. That's it. But it's a dream.
Yeah, I love that. That was great. Thank you so much, Enrico, for joining me from France. This is great. I love to continue the conversation with you, and I'm in contact with Ryan. I think we're going to try to collaborate on some stuff this year as well. So congratulations to you for that, with your work with ForHumanity. And I love what you're doing. So keep up, your content and the things that you share. These are such important, cutting edge topics that people may not be thinking about now, but they're very important.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hope to talk to you again. Take care.
Definitely. Thank you.
Bye.